So good. So you got both of them?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
And it's great we have Slade.
Yeah,
So you are first.
yes. And I'm gonna do 20 minutes and stop. Then you come, it's yours.
So at the beginning, I'm gonna introduce everyone,
Yes,
so you can
yes,
have a seat, and then
yes.
I will
Yeah.
introduce others.
Okay, you won't start the time.
Oh, no,
Okay,
not
okay.
yet. You can have a seat. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Phyllis Slade Martin, and I will help moderate the discussion today. I am going to, I just want to welcome you to Education Stories of the 20th Century. We've got some great stories here today that are going to be shared and told to y'all. We have three excellent presentations for you. Now, I do want to begin just by saying, I know we're at an esteemed institution and it's very important, but I want you to feel free to interact with the panelists. Whether it's call and response, whether it's amen, you can stand up, you can say, you said what? So you can ask rhetorical questions, you can ask regular questions. So we want you to feel fully engaged with what is being talked about, because people have done really courageous and outstanding work. And so we want to recognize that. And I want to make sure that you feel comfortable engaging in that way. So we're going to have I'm going to introduce all of the speakers, and then we're going to have each of them to present. At the very end, we'll have at least 15 or 20 minutes to ask questions. So I want you to think of your questions as you're going through. And then at the very end, we'll do a Q&A. Is that okay? Thumbs up, good? Okay, thank you. So let me introduce the first panel who will present on reclaiming the gifts of the one-room schoolhouse and telling the backstory of Black political activism in Charles City, Virginia. We have Dr. Yvonne Jones, Mrs. Denise Burrell-Smith, and Mrs. Brenda Jones Cotman. Dr. Yvonne Smith-Jones is a renowned educator and community political activist focusing on coaching, leading, and mentoring leaders. She is a founding member of Women Educational Leaders in Virginia and Black Women Educational Leaders. Mrs. Denise Burrell-Smith is the longest serving Commission of Revenue in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And Mrs. Brenda Jones, did I hear a hand clap over there? Okay. And we have Mrs. Brenda Jones Cotman, was the branch manager of the oldest independent Black-owned bank in America, Consolidated Bank and Trust in Richmond, Virginia. Yes, yeah, okay. These Black political activists were born and still live in Charles City, Virginia, as receivers of the opportunities. So I want you to remember that word, receivers of the opportunities. And then is Miss Valentine here? If you want to come up front, well, when you're ready, you don't have to sit up front, but at the end when we do Q&A, if you don't mind coming up. Yes. Okay. And so we have Valerie Alficia Valentine, who is going to present on The Birthday Cake, short story of segregated schools for Negro students. Miss Valentine was born into a military family and attended George Washington Carver and Lee Hall Elementary School. She was the first African-American female student to integrate Lee Hall Elementary School. She attended Warwick High School, but graduated Denby High School in 1969. Now, I'm not gonna hold that against you because some of us went to Hampton High School, but Denby is good too. Okay, she attended William and Mary Summer School in 1972 and later went to Spelman College, earning a BA in political science. She took part in the Miss Hampton Newport News scholarship pageant in 1974. She retired from Johnson & Johnson Pharmaceutical Management in 2009. Her hobbies include travel, reading, Pilates, baking, yoga, golf, ballet, and cycling. I think we need to give a round of applause for that. Okay, all right. And then we have Ms.
Well, may I just add one last thing that you did? I'm also proud of my master's degree in jurisprudence, constitutional law from Cal State University of Long Beach.
Yay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And then we have Ms. Camilla Lewis Tramuel, who is going to present on early African-American education. Camilla is a native of the Plum Point community in New Kent County, Virginia, and she currently resides in Yorktown. She is co-founder and president of the African American Heritage Society of New Kent County, chairperson for the Green versus New Kent Committee, and former president of the New Kent Historical Society. She is author and publisher of the AAHF NK Black History newsletter, and is the church historian for St. Luke Baptist Church. We need the church historians and archivists, right? At Plum Point. Her latest church project was to identify and record those buried in the church cemetery with or without a headstone. She is co-author with Levon Patterson Allen for books on African American history in New Kent County. She is the eldest of 10 children born to Raymond and Helen Poindexter Lewis of New Kent County. She graduated from New Kent High School in 1971, a 1998 graduate of Hampton University, and in 2010 received a master's degree in government contracting from American Graduate University. Let's give all of them, show all of them some love. And I have, Sarah, you might be able to help me with this, Miss Jacqueline Garner. Is that part of, is a Miss Jacqueline Garner here? Okay, all right, that's just on the back. Well, listen, everyone, we're gonna get started with our first presentation, Reclaiming the Gifts. Dr. Smith-Jones.
Well, good morning, everyone. Let's get energized. Let's get energized. All right, all right, all right. So we're here today to talk about our folks, Black folks. Let's give that a big hand. So we're from Charles City County, a small rural community, one caution light, a bank. We now have 2 Dollar General stores. So we've been termed as a food desert. Currently, we're the home of the first Black governor, the Honorable Lawrence Douglas Wilder, a Black female serving as its county administrator today, Mrs. Michelle Johnson. So we started the action by having many one-room schoolhouses in Charles City County. And we stem our educational attainment from these wonderful schools, and we have seen the fruits of such schools. So you ride through, drive by, or take a tour, and you'll find fields. They're peaceful along the highways. You will find markers highlighting Blacks and their contributions. Meanwhile, the resources are limited and voices are passive and silent. But the young people move forward and try to embark upon upward mobility to the surrounding areas, trying to find themselves and make a life of happiness. So we have many hidden facts. The Black young people in Charles City, they are not aware of these wonderful hidden Black facts about Charles City County. And we have not done enough to try to get them involved. So one of the things that we would like to do is to make them aware of their rich legacy. Charles City has been a thriving community, and during Black History Month, I had the opportunity to see millenniums, Gen X, Y, and the young children of our county post many things to social media. And they highlighted people such as Dr. King and Sojourner Truth and Maggie Walker, but they didn't say anything about the wonderful people who made Charles City what it is today and the contributions that Black people gave. Because they don't know it, we have not made it visible. All of these are hidden facts. So it is time that we emphasize the contributions that Black people have made in Charles City. In 1950, if we had 4,676 people living in Charles City and 3,708 are Black people, shouldn't we be shining a light on it? Shouldn't we be ringing the bell? Shouldn't we be saying that we were here and we made the difference, that we are creators of all great things in the county? So families have missed a golden opportunities. And we see this, the three of us, as the last time to get the story right, to provide the narratives that we need, and to do those things that people in Charles City need to know. We have Lot Carey. As you travel, you hear and you see and you hear about Lot Carey. If you go to Africa, you hear about Lot Carey, born in Charles City County. And the house that he lived in, a member of my church have that property. So kids don't know that. This man, Edward T. Banks, is the founder of Charles City's NAACP and Civic League and the first Black on the board of supervisors. He provided so much to so many that he organized and he brought people together. He strategized and he used all the gifts of a community in Charles City where we had a family known as the Brown family, who's the mega of Charles City as far as getting the word out and helping us to grow. And they are in the Elam Baptist Church area. And we are so proud of the things that they have done to reach out to make the county a better place for African-American, Black people. So from his great work, then we have Brother Charles F. Bowman. We considered him a foot soldier with the ability to lead change. Well, there's nowhere that you see Charles F. Bowman's name. It's like he never existed. This man was at the first March on Washington. He took pictures. We have many pictures that we have archived in our possession now that we plan to do something with. He used his wonderful classmates, and he was a grassroots advocate. And he was able to get things going, to build a framework, to start to tell the story that we are having in order to promote change in Charles City County. So from all the good works of Edward T. Banks and Charles F. Bowman, 3 little Black girls were born in the 50s. They were curious. They were with their families, they worshiped, they were attentive to the climate and culture in the community. And they wanted to absorb knowledge and they wanted to be involved. So they participated in church, community, and educational activities, and each attended and graduated from college. But these 3 individuals could not do this if it wasn't for the work that was done in Charles City County in 1971 by Charles F. Bowman, Lord Jones, and Richard Bowman. They paved the way for us. And because of that, we were able to go to college. So Brenda, Yvonne, and Denise stayed in the Charles City community and put forth the effort to make Black history visible, relevant, and meaningful. We didn't very off to Williamsburg and to Henrico and Chesterfield and to, just have all of the wonderful things at their fingertips. We stayed in Charles City County to make sure that we got that little Dollar General store, to make sure we had new schools, to make sure we had a bank, to make sure we have some little stores and gas stations where we could have our goods and take, and services to partake upon. So we're here, and we've been presidents of the NAACP, the Civic League. We've been on all the county boards, and we've been appointed by governors to boards. We are life members of the NAACP. We give our time and energy and continue to make Charles City County a rich and Black culture with many places to see and hear the stories of a people who were a part of the civil rights movement of the 60s, which caused 1971 to become a pivotal year in Charles City and afforded Black folks the experience and the power of the ballot box. And it is the power of the ballot box that got us where we are today. And it is continuing the power of the ballot box that's going to get us to the next phase. And it is our mission. We are deemed necessary to make sure we take this information and give it to our students and to our families and to our children and to our children's children, so the Black young people can heal. We just had a shooting in Charles City County. Someone at his home, 7 bullets. So we're saying we need to heal because we don't know who we are, and we're moving and we're just surviving. We're not thriving, and we're not understanding who we are and whose we are. We don't have that in our hearts. So it is our, hopefully, mission now is that we shine a light on our service and the volunteerism and things that we've done. So we ask that you be with us as we in the community do all these wonderful things. We ask that you look at these 3 little girls now who have retired and feel a need to give more. And we're finding ways to reclaim the gifts of access to the opportunities that we were afforded. So now that we're retired, we need to give back, and we need to showcase what we have done in Charles City County and how we have elevated ourselves, and why our children need to stay in Charles City County and that they need to grow their families, because our population of Black Americans is decreasing at a significant rate. So we don't have, where we own a lot of the houses and land in Charles City, that is no longer true. And we have factual information from the census report and all other surveys that we have to show that. So we want people to know that good folks come from Charles City County. People who have dedicated their lives to make it a better place. Basically, it's a safe place. Now, we had the shooting this week, but that typically does not happen in Charles City, but it has happened. And we need to make sure that we are telling folks who we are and what we bring. And if you love yourself, and if you know where self coming from, and if you've heard the stories from grandma and grandpa and aunts and uncles and all of those people who went north and now coming back into the locality, then you can know that I need to be a better citizen, and I need to get involved, and I need to stay here and purchase land and build a house in Charles City County and be a part of a wonderful, rich heritage and a movement that's going forward. And that is where we want. So we want to do that. So we're going to reclaim the gifts by making the time to gather the data, all of the documents that we have, many documents, many primary sources that we have to say that we need to continue to conduct interviews from our baby boomers, because they are leaving us too at alarming rates. But our baby boomers, they are the great people. And we're going to visit communities, homes, and churches and cemeteries. We have those databases that we've started. We're going to locate primary and secondary sources. People are giving them to us. And we had the fortunate of having a Black-owned building in Charles City by the Civic League. We actually raised the funds. We constructed the building, and now the building is there. We house the Chickahominy Medical Center in our building, and we are on the board of directors. And we going to take that building, and we're going to have a healing room. and we're gonna tell the story. And we're gonna make sure the children can come to this room and to see and understand where they come from and why they need to uplift Charles City County. So Denise is gonna give a little brief synopsis of her as Commissioner of Revenue in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And then Brenda is gonna talk about being in a part of the Mega L. Walker Bank, which is consolidated. And then I'm going to just say a couple of statements to end it. But now we're gonna hear Denise talk about her life in Charles City County. Denise?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you, Yvonne, for allowing me to have this opportunity. I like your broad overview, so I know I only have 3 minutes. First of all, I wanted to mention that so much started in the church with the Black history. And I'm a member of Old Elam Baptist Church, organized in 1810, which is one of the oldest Black churches in the county. There was history in our church. Reverend Dr. George W. Watkins, if some of you would know, he was my pastor and he baptized me just before he retired. Also, we had other members from our church. Alexander Q. Franklin was the very first Commissioner of Revenue in the state of Virginia. I'm the first, he was the first Black male. I'm the first Black female elected in 1979. And when I retired in December, I was the longest serving, having served 43 years. I took the oath of office at the age of 22 when I was the youngest. But my members of my church and my community made that possible for me. I didn't do it alone, but I did come from a church with lots of history. We had the late Henry O. Holloman, who served as school board and on the Board of Supervisors in Charles City County. We had Charles Boo Brown, who served on the school board. Mr. H.D. Brown, who also served on the Board of Supervisors. I feel that God ordained me to be elected and to serve in this position. I started out in 68, the election of 68, Hubert Humphrey, George Wallace, and Richard Nixon, logging everything as a 6th grader. My father and I were up all night long, looking at the results and waiting for everything to come through. I was able to serve as Commissioner of Revenue and participate in lots of activities, served on lots of boards, was critical in getting a lot of the training done, but none of it could have been done if people who paved the way for me, who gave me the opportunity to go to school. And I did want to mention very quickly about Charles F. Bowman. He was my Sunday school teacher, and I loved him. He helped so much with the youth. He encouraged us. He did everything he could, and he was a great influence. And then I was able to serve with his older brother on the Board of Supervisors, again, encouraging us, giving us the opportunities to move forward. I just wanted to say, I can say many things, but I'm limited with time. But I did want to mention that I have 2 cousins who are here. My cousin Betty Jean Burrell, who's the former treasurer and 10 other things in the Commonwealth of Virginia. She served in a lot of different positions. And my cousin Bobby Burrell, who graduated from law school here. And he is also retired military and a former JAG attorney in the Army. So we all worked together. We all had the opportunities, but I did want to mention that your family helps support you, your community helps to support you. And Yvonne is my classmate. We're class of 75, Charles City High School. We went to Girls State at Longwood, and we've been working continually through the years as we've both been here and everything. And Brenda is a former member of our church, and we grew up in the community together. Charles Bowman was her Sunday school teacher also. So I just wanted to mention, I just am thankful for the opportunity that God and the community have given me to serve into our community. And I'll never forget when I was running for office, I was still in school, and some people had appointments at the placement office. And I said, it's good to have an appointment at the placement office, but what is better than to serve in your community where you grew up and serve the people you know? I said, I thought that was a blessing, and I still do. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
it is definitely a blessing just to be here. When Yvonne approached us about doing this, I was like, oh my goodness. But I love to talk, those who know me. And to tell me I have 3 minutes to say something, it's like, oh my gosh. But as stated, I was born in Charles City County. I actually was born in Charles City County because I was not born in a hospital. My mother had 4 girls and all 4 of us were born at home. So, and that was a blessing. My parents, unfortunately, only had 8th grade education. So they understood the importance of education, but they just were not afforded the ability to continue in school. Because back in the day, they would pull you out if you needed to work the fields, or my mother was pulled out just to help her aunt who was sick. But like I said, Charles Fletcher Bone was my Sunday school teacher. And if it had not been for him, I would not have gone on to college, because I knew my parents didn't have money. But he told me, he said, Brenda, you have good grades, so you can go to school. So I was able to go to Virginia State University, the best HBCU in the world, not just the state, but the world. And then I was able to obtain a degree in business administration with a concentration of public administration. From there, I was afforded the opportunity to be employed by Consolidated Bank and Trust, founded by Maggie L. Walker. That was such, I was just overwhelmed that I was able to join there. I started as a teller, didn't want to do that, but you know, you got to start somewhere. And by the time I retired when did I retire? Well, I didn't retire from there. Let's take that back. When I left there, I had served 23 years there, but I worked myself. And I said, you know, I worked myself because it takes work. And that's one thing we stress to young people. When I left there, I was the assistant vice president in charge of branch operations. And that was a challenge. During my time there, I did earn my degree a diploma in bank management from UVA. And of course, Consolidated Bank paid for me to do that because they saw something in me, just like Charlie Boy. That's what we used to call it, Charlie Boy Run. Just like what Charlie Boy saw in me, they saw it also. And I did come back to my county because I love Charles City County. As it has been said, I was a member of the Elam Baptist Church, serving there as clerk for over 25 years. I now serve at Liberty Baptist Church as a deaconess and finance chair for the church. One of the greatest things I would say as I close, back in 1999, the late Honorable Don McKeechin entered a resolution. The General Assembly was a joint House resolution recognizing me for my participation in NAACP, Civic League, and many other organizations. And that was a resolution number 880 that was presented to me by the General Assembly. So it does show that hard work does pay off, and that with God by your side, you can accomplish many things. And I am a proud alumnus of Virginia State, Virginia State University, and we do great things in the state of Virginia and in the nation. But again, thank you for this opportunity.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
I'm Valerie Alvisha Valentine, and I was the presenter last year. I told the story of my integration of Lee Hall Elementary School. And today I want to share with you the last year at the George Washington Carver Segregated School. And I entitled this story, The Birthday Cake. My attempt to share with you today is a little bit of history about the reservation, which is the free people of color community that my ancestors hail from, and I have lived there. So let's go back to 1962. It was the longest daily commute for education that I would ever take, 18 miles to school one way. I had been doing it for 6 years now. No worries, as I had a big brother on the bus who is 1 year and 17 days older than me. It seems his attitude was always that I was a necessary evil because our parents would skin him alive if anything happened to me, figuratively speaking, that is. Nowadays, I take great pleasure in photobombing his birthday pictures. As I tell his children, your dad has never known life without me being in the background. So yes, we're Irish twins. We took this route to school with the Negro children in our neighborhood 5 days a week, picking up other children at their designated bus stops on the way. We traveled along the major 4-lane highway from the suburban area of the city. Several traffic lights and a couple of railroad crossings dotted our scenery. Today, any parent in America would be horrified at the thought of this kind of commute for elementary school children. 18 miles is a long way for young children, but it was better than what our parents had. Well, at least in our mama's case. She never made a fuss about our commute and often packed an extra homemade snack or fruit, which no kid really wants, but came in handy some days. Regardless, there was a snack after the bathroom as soon as we got home. Our mama grew up in the same neighborhood we did on a different street, but the same community. She said in the 1930s, they walked to school where they had one Black female teacher who taught all lower grades. Mama said the older boys who walked to school about 3 miles away would often carry younger children piggyback. She said sometimes they would take baked sweet potatoes as part of their lunch, but said in winter months, it also helped to keep their hands warm in their pockets. At that time, there was only one high school for Negro students to attend, Huntington High School, downtown. The area we lived in was known in colonial times as the reservation. This area was initially settled by free African Americans shortly after the Revolutionary War. With the promise of fighting for freedom for Great Britain, with the promise of freedom fighting for Great Britain, Cornwallis convinced free people of color from Northern Virginia to enlist and follow him to Yorktown, along with the fact that Great Britain had abolished slavery in 1834. Upon Cornwallis's surrender, these free Blacks made the area their home. During the Reconstruction period, the community had grown to over 100 families and was self-sustaining. There were privately owned farms, oystering and carpentry businesses, schools, fraternal halls, 3 churches, and several cemeteries. This would become Warwick County, later annexed by the city of Newport News and York County. Literally, the county border is in our community. Our mama told us stories about her growing up with cousins regularly swimming in the York River and playing in Cornwallis's cave before it became a National Historic Site. In addition, one of the 10 most haunted places in America is partially located in this community. The Civil War bride who haunts a bridge looking for her rebel soldier. And I'm skipping over some information that's in the short story, but I want to give you guys the gist of the story and how it comes to talk about this birthday cake. I am scrolling right now just to get to the next point that I want to share with you. In order for our mama to attend high school, she went to live with cousins who were closer to the school. Our mother was a high schooler in the late 1950s whose commute from her home on Sunday afternoon by train to her cousin's house was about 30 miles away. She went to school with them Monday through Friday, then took the train back to Lee Hall on Friday afternoons. This was for a young Black woman to be educated beyond elementary school and whose family felt it imperative that she get an education. My grandparents thought it was the best idea, and having close relatives who lived downtown made it an easier decision. George Washington Carver was both elementary and high school, each having their own buildings, was midpoint between downtown and our neighborhood. Elementary school consisted of grades 1 through 7 and high school grades 8 through 12. There were no kindergarten classes in Newport News, Virginia in the 1950s. Carver was the second high school in the city for Negroes. In 1961, at the sixth grade segregated George Washington Carver Elementary School was exciting times. Everyone in the elementary and high school campuses, from the principal on down, were African-American teachers, educators, counselors. Even the cafeteria and custodian staff was all African-American employees. I could never have imagined making this statement would be so foreign to people and students in the 21st century. I even went to my third grade teacher, Miss Day's beautiful wedding. She invited the entire class. There were two sixth grade male teachers, Mr. Robbins and Mr. Taylor. The female sixth grade teacher, Mrs. Diggs, was an old single, not very pretty, bow-legged, nut-hued, piano-playing, spiritual singing teacher that everyone called Nana Diggs behind her back. The warning tales of Nana Diggs had been spread by fifth graders, by siblings, upperclassmen over the years. We lived in sixth grade promotion fear. Okay. Sorry, okay. Mr. Taylor was one of the African-American sixth grade teachers. He was extremely handsome, medium height, milk chocolate skinned, early 40s instructor. His hair was jet black and wavy. A thick, well-groomed mustache completed his look. He wore blazers, suits, ties, sweaters with appropriately coordinated socks. Mr. Taylor looked like an Ebony magazine male model. He taught history and English, subjects in which I excelled. My best friend was in his homeroom class, which, as we all know, makes school and learning so much better, but was also a proven distraction from lessons. All right, and then I want to tell you about Mr. Robbins, the other male teacher. They knew my parents. They had all attended North Carolina A&T State University in Greensboro in the late 40s. Mr. Robbins was such a nice, brown, pecan brown young man, about my parents' age, so old for a sixth grader. Good-natured Mr. Robbins was always in a suit and tie in his classes, just like the military dads changed their uniforms. Mr. Robbins' suits changed with the seasons as well. Now, Mr. Robbins had a bit of an eye issue. One eye was crossed, lazy, or had weak muscles because his eye wandered randomly. He also wore glasses, but not always. You never really knew if Mr. Robbins was looking at you, around you, past you, or over you. You just couldn't be certain. So cheating in his class was a definite no. Math is my weakest subject. I am not confident and or smart enough. It always has been difficult for me. And nightly, it seemed our daddy was helping me do math homework at the kitchen. And I'm not going to read this, but I just want to share with you, since math wasn't my best subject, I used to go to Mr. Robbins and convince him that he probably would want to give me another chance and maybe get my grade to a C with the promise of doing better the next time, all right? And sometimes I did, but I also tell him the story how, you know, Mr. Robbins, this wouldn't be good for us because, you know, growing up with military parents, our restriction was 30 days, but in this case, it would be an entire, you know, school period. And I mean, there would be just chores in church, okay? You couldn't do your ballet, your tap, or hang out with friends, or go to the movies, or skating rink, or anything. And I'm like, this just would not be good for anybody, because one of the parents would have to stay home with me, the other parent would take the other kids. I'm like, you know, Mr. Robbins, just help a sister out at this point, okay? However, my homeroom was with Mrs. Diggs. We began each day with roll call, the Pledge of Allegiance, as well as some spiritual or Americana type songs. Our singing was always accompanied by Mrs. Diggs playing the piano. Mrs. Diggs ran a tight ship in her sixth grade class. Most of us were already frightened of her due to the rumors of her strict rules and class etiquette. She intimidated students into behaving. And being baby boomers, we didn't rebel against authority that early in life. We did that 10 years later when we were in college, Vietnam, civil rights protest, or just trying to find ourselves. When she had to leave the class unattended for a few minutes, there were no teacher's aides in 1950s, for an office visit or just to speak with another teacher, several students would jump out of their seats and dash to the pianos and others to the doors as lookouts. Once on the piano bench, classmates would play boogie woogie and R&B type music to our amazement and entertainment. Some students would take random turns playing music tunes. Many of them would show us the latest dance steps to know. However, somehow those budding pianists, along with the signals from the lookouts, would manage to be back in their assigned seat by the time Mrs. Diggs returned. Yes, of course she could hear the music being played down the hall. I am proud to say no one ever gave up our in-house student musicians or spies, ever. Okay, and many of the kids' parents were military, and at that time it was still cool to play war because, you know, up to that point, the United States had never lost any conflict that they had been in. So our military students applied those techniques. Now, my cousin Rosie was in my class. We grew up and played together as little girls, and we were the same age, and our mamas knew each other from having grown up in the same community. Rosie was an olive brown girl with hair and eyes almost the same color, and she wore 2 candy curled ponytails. She was also full of opinions and wives' tales. She was good at her lessons and good in sports, but all girl. I knew by then Rosie was one of those people with whom you had to ascertain which side of the fence she was on that day, because her moods changed. If you were not in her good favor, well, she could be cruel. It was in 3rd grade when Rosie really hurt my feelings by what she said to Nina, another classmate. It was later in the back to school weeks, and people were wearing their new clothes and this girl hadn't. One day after recess in line for the water fountain, Rosie turned to Nina and commented for all to hear that she only wore 2 dresses to school. And after that, Rosie even tried to convince classmates to not drink from the water fountain that Nina had used. I was shocked and so surprised that she would say it out loud. I felt hurt. We had all seen it, so why did Rosie have to say it out loud? Nina hung her head and said that there were 10 children in her family and that her mother had died. That wasn't enough for my cousin. She started to laugh and make Nina feel bad. I felt so bad for Nina at first. Then I realized my cousin was that girl, the mean girl, decades before the terminology. We made, okay, sorry, just to get closer to what happens. Oh, here we are. We'd made several months into 6th grade and Nana Diggs' class. One day in class, the subject turned to birthday celebrations. Each student was to tell of a special, memorable, or recent incident to do with birthdays. When it was Nina's turn, she said that she had never had a birthday cake or a birthday party. I was in complete and utter shock. There were comments and surprise from other classmates too. I don't remember how Mrs. Diggs strategically redirected the conversation away, but she did successfully. On the bus ride home, holding my books in my lap, I kept thinking Nina had never had a birthday party. We always ate meals together as a family, especially at dinner. And I usually helped Mama by setting the table with napkins, plates, flatware, and glasses. I probably made the Kool-Aid and iced tea at this age, per Mama's instructions, of course. It was during dinner that I told my family of the little girl in my class who was 10 minutes. Oh, is that me?
We have, according to me, we have 1 minute.
Okay, all right. So here's the thing I wanted to share with you. So my mother made this cake for this little girl. I take it to school and I go through all that. And then I tell you about the birthday party. It's like my brother and I, we're just a year and some months apart. So one year my brother would have the party. Next year I would have the party, and you're single digits, all boys. And then the next year was mine, girls, kinky, fluff stuff and stuff, but they weren't over the top like we do for our children now. Most of the time it was at our home and, ended, if the girls had a sleepover, then my mom made breakfast, for them. And I mean, this was like a restaurant, even better breakfast. But, okay, so my mom called the school and everything and made arrangements. My brother carried the book that day. Everyone on the bus was surprised to see me with the pretty sheet cake. Of course, Rosie had something to say, all right? But 7th graders were telling people to move out of the way, make way, clear the path, cake coming through. So I got to the classroom earlier than Nina, put the cake on her desktop. I was hoping the small cracks in the frosting wouldn't show. Okay, this is the part. She hesitated. She came in on time and studious as well, books in her arms. She hesitated. She seemed confused about the crowd around her desk. Why? Who? My mama made it for you so you can have a birthday cake and a party. another quick part that I won't read to you, but share with you. So this crafty old Mrs. Diggs, she told us, go get the tray from the cafeteria. Looking back 50 years, that was her opportunity to give us a little bit of time so that we could have the party in the cafeteria at lunch. At lunch, we sang happy birthday to Nina. She insisted on slicing her cake with my assistance. She served all the teachers, of course. And I will say the other students were disappointed, but they understood this was a sixth grade party and it was her special day. Nina, at the end of the day, Nina gave me 2 notes, one for my mother, one for me. And now I'm going to skip to the part that I think you might be. Okay, so our mom didn't finish college until 1971 at Hampton because, of course, there was us in between time. But that was the only year that Hampton never had a graduation because of civil rights protests by the students. All right, I didn't often get calls from home and school to dormitory, but I did that day. And because my dad was a disabled veteran, we always were afraid it was going to be bad news. But my mom calls and says, there is news, not bad news. Today, I met one of your classmates from Carver Elementary School. I didn't tell you, after this year, I never went back or saw a lot of those kids because I went to integrate Lee Hall Elementary School, so I lost touch. Then she proceeded to tell me this, my mother. I went to Ferguson High School. She said there was new student teacher training. And then the facilitator called her name, which is Gladys Valentine. What happened next was without precedent. She said this tall, slender, brown-skinned, well-dressed woman gasped out loud while rising from her seat, which startled and caught the attention of everyone present. Initially, the people thought that the young woman might have been experiencing some type of medical emergency. But then she stood up and approached Mama haltingly, asking, are you Mrs. Valentine, Alphicia's mother, Alphicia Valentine? Mama said she was surprised and answered, why, yes, I am Alphicia's mother. Do you know her? Do I know you as a military mom and, you know, being the chaperone and everything?
To wrap up. So,
Okay, and this is it. By the time the young woman approached my mom, she was crying and she held her and hugged her tight. She said, for all to hear, you made my first birthday cake when I was 10 years old, and I never got to thank you in person. So there was no dry eye in the house that day, and I thought it was a story to be told about the people from where I'm from, the reservation, what we do, and I carried that throughout life, but I wanted to celebrate my smart friend and the love of a mother and father. So I hope you enjoyed it.
You can go up. And what we're gonna do is you will get your 15 minutes, and for those who can stay, we will still have time. Thank you, Sarah. We will still have some time for Q&A. So you got your 15 minutes.
Now, my presentation said from 9:15 to 10:30. That's how long my presentation is. It's not 15 minutes
9:15
to 10:30. But my presentation is not 15 minutes. I mean, I can skip through, but my presentation is not 15 minutes.
It's allotted 15
The panel, the full panel is 9:15
But when I got my time slot, that's what my time slot didn't say panel. But I can slide through.
Yeah,
I can slide
we
through.
got 15 minutes, and
Oh,
then
okay.
we're going to do some Q&A.
I'm gonna have to run it through my computer, so can you tell me
Oh.
when to advance the slide? I'm gonna run it down here, so just tell me when you want it.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, we're gonna roll through this, y'all. 15 minutes. I'm gonna do the, okay, I'm gonna talk about the Freedmen's Bureau, then I'm gonna skip to New Kent County.
Voted that right there.
Dr. Yvonne, and you get up with your time, no. Wait, so your arms just go off.
Keeping up with it.
Yeah. And I just want to say, as she's waiting to get set up, that it was fun when we heard the Virginia State, and then we had the people at Norfolk and Hampton and other places. And Morgan saying, wait a minute, okay. All right.
All right, since it's just 15 minutes, I'll just do the Freedmen's Bureau. How about that?
Okay.
Okay. Good evening again. Good morning again. My name is Camilla Tramuel. I'm president of the African American Heritage Society of New Kent County. And we always looking for members. We always look for members. And when this lady was talking, made me want to sell my house in Yorktown and move to Charles City. But that ain't. Okay, so. Okay. My original was Freedmen's Bureau, Rosenwald Schools, Community College Schools, and Training Schools. But right now, we just gonna go ahead and roll on with the Freedmen's Bureau. Okay, in 1865, President Lincoln saw the Civil War coming to an end. So he was trying to decide, what in the world am I gonna do with these 2 million free African-American former slaves? What am I gonna do with them? So he said, okay, I'm gonna establish the Freedmen's Bureau that will help them get education, go to school, banks, everything. He was assassinated in 1860, April 15th, and May 9th, the Civil War ends. The next president was Andrew Johnson. Andrew Johnson hated the Freedmen's Bureau. He tried to veto it, but Congress said, no, you can't do that. So the first commissioner of the Freedmen's Bureau was Major General Oliver O. Howard, whom Howard University is named after. Okay. Am I supposed to sit next slide? Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay. The Freedmen's Bureau was supposed to benefit the free men, former slaves, and the poor whites in the South. It operated from 1865 to 1872, and it was considered a part of early Reconstruction. And this was part of Reconstruction because Reconstruction was getting the United States back together, being the United States. The states that were in the Bureau were the 13 listed here. I'm not going to name them all. And I highlighted Texas and Virginia. Can anybody tell me why I highlighted Texas? Juneteenth. Juneteenth, yes. Each county had a Freedmen's Bureau with a superintendent. It established banks, hospitals, bought land, located lost family members who were former slaves who had ran away, and it was looking for a husband, wives, children, legalized marriages, and the biggest thing they had was education. Next slide. This is a Freedmen's Bureau report from the bank. For those people who are doing family history, they have banks in Norfolk, bank in Richmond, Virginia. But if you're doing family history, the bank receipt will tell you where the person was born, where they were brought up, where they was living at the time that they paid their money for the bank, who their husband and wife were, who their children, who their parents, who their brothers and sisters. It's a wealth of information on the Freedmen's Bureau records. And not only that, if you put money in a bank, you were considered rich, even if it wasn't but $1. You was rich folks. You was rich folks. You had money in the bank. Next slide. And this is a marker for the Freedmen's Bureau Bank in Richmond, Virginia. The former Freedmen's Bureau Bank in Richmond, Virginia. It was at the corner of 10th Street and Broad Street. So the next time you go down Broad Street and you see 10th Street, you'll know. Next slide. This is Alexander T. Augusta. He was the first major who was on the faculty at Howard Medical College. now Howard University. He was a member of the United States Colored Troops. In 2023, Fort Belvoir renamed their hospital Alexander T. Augusta Military Medical Center. He died in 1890. Next slide. Marriages. Before the Civil War ended, slaves could not legally be married. So we did what we gonna do anyway. So what we used to do was what? We jumped the broom. That was our way of getting married. We jumped the broom. But when the Freedmen's Bureau came and allowed them to legalize their marriage, on the marriage certificate, they had the date they was married, who they were married to, and if they had any kids, they had to list all the kids and the dates that they were born. Next slide. And education was our biggest thing. And this is a picture of a Freedmen's Bureau school. And if you notice, there were more adults in the class than children. This was an adult night school for the adults. Next slide. Who paid? Okay, the government originally was supposed to pay for the Freedmen's Bureau, but because they was using all their money trying to get the United States back together as a United States, the benevolent societies ended up paying for the teachers. Some of the buildings were owned by people in the community, and then some of the buildings were being rented out. So they couldn't, the United States couldn't afford to do it. We were in the 5th sub-district. If you see the Fort Monroe was our headquarters, and we were broken down into divisions. And the benevolent societies were mostly organizations who were missionary oriented, like the Quakers, the Missionary Association, the Presbyterians, the Episcopal churches. They were sending teachers, because at the beginning, we couldn't read and write. Most of us couldn't read and write. So most of the teachers for the Freedmen's Bureau were white teachers. In 1867, there was 192 Freedmen's Bureau schools in Virginia with 8,879 students and 220 teachers. And that was an average of 41 students per teacher. Next slide. We're gonna talk about Freedmen's Bureau in York County. How much time I got left?
You can have 7 minutes and 47.
Can you skip to New Kent County, Freedmen's Bureau in New Kent County? Okay. These are the 10 Freedmen's Bureaus that were in New Kent County. If you go to the Freedmen's Bureau website, it will give you a list of all the schools, there's building sizes, it'll give you the school reports. And the only thing it doesn't tell you is where the school is actually located. It will tell you it's in this county, but it's not going to tell you where it's actually located. And number 2 is Eltham. If for those of you who go to West Point, right before you go across the bridge where the 7-Eleven is, that's Eltham. So we know the general vicinity where most of our schools were. And it will tell you how many students were in class, the names of some of the teachers, whether it's in Providence Forge, like number 7 says Olivet Church School. And that was at a church, that was one of the missionary churches that had a Freedmen's Bureau school. And Olivet was also a, no, I won't. I'm skipping. Okay, I'm sorry. Next slide. And this is what a teacher's report looks like for the Freedmen's Bureau. And this is for the month of 1869, and it talks about Eltham School. Yeah, that's big so y'all can see it. Okay, actually, whether it was a day school or night school, and ungraded means that it's like 20 kids in 20 different grades in the same room. It asks who pays for it. Is it supported by the school board? The teacher, whether it was a white teacher or colored teacher? How many students in class? Next slide. And there's a question on, it's not on this one, but there's a question at the bottom of the school report that asks, how do people in the community feel about Freedom Bureau schools? Now, two ways to look at this. One way is the community said that they didn't like Freedom Bureau schools. I don't know whether they didn't like them because they didn't think that African or freed slaves need to have an education, or whether we were smart enough. But the other reason is, why are you paying for them to go to school and you're not paying for our kids to go to school? So there's two ways to when you're reading something, you got to interpret both sides to see, because everybody got an opinion. So their opinion was, how come you're not paying for us? You're paying for them, but you're not paying for us. You know, next slide. And this is another one. This says New Kent School. I'm still looking for that question, but it's not on this one either. And this is for the New Kent School. And this is the monthly report that comes from the superintendent that goes to Fort Monroe, because Fort Monroe was the headquarters. Next slide. Okay, 1870, Virginia said, you know what? Enough of that. The Freedom Bureau was over in 1872, but in Virginia, it was over in 1870, because Virginia said, you know what? We're going to start our own school and our own school system. And that's what they did. But you still got to have your black school over here, and you got to have your white school over here. They couldn't be integrated. Yeah, next slide. So Virginia passed the law. Next slide. And in Virginia, in 1871, these are how many schools they had, how many teachers, male, female, whether they was white or whether they was colored. In New Kent, they had 3 white schools, 3 white teachers, 38 white students, but no color schools, no color teachers, no color students. On record. Next slide. And this was for James City County. This is broken down into voting districts, of course. Stonehouse, Powhatan, York County. Next slide. And this was for New Kent County. Next slide. Okay, Rosenwald. Since I got a few minutes left, Rosenwald schools, Julius Rosenwald was Jewish. He was the president of Sears and Roebuck. He was also on the board of trustees at Tuskegee University with Booker T. Washington. Now, I had to read a whole lot of books to find out that the idea from Rosenwald schools came from Booker T. Washington, not Julius Rosenwald. But, so they were sitting there one day at drinking coffee in the break room at Tuskegee. And Booker T said, you know what, I got an idea, since Sears can build schools, I need you to build some schools for me. They for African-American students. Now, one thing about Roosevelt, he believed everybody should have an education, no matter what color you were, everybody need to have education. So he said, oh man, that's a good idea. We can build the school like this, it can have this many windows, it can do this. Booker T said, hold on. We can't have it that big. We're not going to do it that big, because if we build it better than theirs, they might burn it down. They might vandalize it. So we can't do that. We can't do that. So they agreed. Next slide. Next slide. They agreed to little schools like this. If you're in a Confederate state and you leave Virginia and you go to North Carolina, you're going to see a school that looks just like that. Because Roosevelt schools all had the same plan everywhere you go, every state. Now, Alabama was the first state. They did that as a test run, and they built 100 schools in Alabama, in Tuskegee. And it went off so good, they ended up having 400 just in the state of Alabama together. And, when they did that, everybody started begging for Roosevelt schools. Come on, you know, I need one too, I need one too. Next slide, 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 stop. Okay, I want y'all to look at the total cost for these Roosevelt schools. Let's say Chickahominy had a Roosevelt school. The school cost $3,050. Roosevelt only put in $500, right? So you mean to tell me that they couldn't do a school for $3,050 minus the $50 if they, minus the $500 if they wanted to? But Roosevelt schools was like a fad. Everybody got one, so we gotta have one too. But you could have built the school for $2,000 and we could have had a school. Yeah. But they didn't want to do that. They did not want to do that. Okay, y'all, thank y'all for your time.
That was, all of these were great presentations. Thank you all. Ms. Valentine, do you want to come up? We'll have some time for some Q&A. And so who has questions? We have a few more minutes. Yes, please.
I had two questions. One, are there any annual African American festivals in Charles City to bring more attention to the area? Are there any African American festivals held annually in Charles City just to bring more attention to the city? I didn't know anything, I'm from Baltimore. I knew nothing about Charles City until maybe a year ago, and I've been here 7 or 8 years living in Woodlands, which is ridiculous. That's my one question. And then my other question was, Valentine mentioned the reservation area. Where exactly?
The reservation is, if you're familiar with locally, it's basically, if you look at the York River and you come up one of the Lackey Naval Weapons Station, that is, well, that's a start, but then you have to go east because that's York County. Now the Warwick County line comes, but there's a part of the reservation where I'm from. The real name is In View, but years ago, people start calling it the back road. Okay, so if you go to Yorktown and you talk, most people don't know about the reservation, but they do know about the Black community there. And that's Lackey and all that, and that's what most people think of the reservation. But if you continue maybe another 8 to 10 miles east, it's still Warwick County, not York County, but these were the original people that came down with Cornwallis and settled the area. And the names Armstead, Wallace, Johnson, Carter, still, those names are still in the family, you know, and in that area. And a lot of us, including my brother and I, are still property owners there because this is historical family land and has been, you know, over the centuries, some families have built houses, and it's been in the family so long, some houses have been removed, the 2 stories with the kitchen, you know, separate. But yeah, it's a community there. And that a lot of people know about that 10 most haunted with this rebel blood, and that is in that community as well.
Yeah, as it relates to an annual thing that we do in Charles City County. I can say last year we had a Juneteenth celebration in conjunction with New Kent. And it was really, really good. And we're gonna do the same thing again this year because we decided we're going to alternate. 1 year in Charles City, the next one is in New Kent. Now, Charles City is not a city, first of all. It is Charles City County. So if you come looking for Charles City, you will be disappointed. Because like I said, we just got 2 Dollar General stores, and that was big for us. It's very rural. Has a lot of plantations. If you want to go visit plantations, home of 2 presidents that were born there. So
we had the the 1619 project.
Right.
We had that on the only black beach in Charles City County. And we stood on its rivers and we could see James City County.
That's right.
So we had a program there and it was wonderful, where we blessed the land that black folks had on the waters and what have you. We have a county fair that we highlight things. And then we were the last county in the state of Virginia to get a library. So in our library now, we do have a room that's dedicated to Richard Bowman, and it is the Richard Bowman Historical Center that people can come and gather information about their heritage. It is in a formal setting, therefore, a lot of times citizens just don't feel like that they should go in and do the research. But yeah, we do have those. So we do have those activities, and we do many things through the NAACP and the churches. So, you know, we invite you to come. We can give you information. We have our cards here where you can actually stay in touch with us, and we can send you information. And we'll love for you to come and see Charles City County, a model county by the Ebony magazine. And
And that ties in with some of what she was saying about Ebony magazine in terms of some of the descriptions. No, I'm kidding. Other questions? What other, yeah.
I enjoyed your presentations.
Oh.
I have a friend who's part of the Rhino Association.
Yes,
They saw-
yes.
I saw the image of the rhino,
yes,
and so they celebrate their combined red and black blood.
yes,
So
yes.
you're familiar.
We are familiar with them. We have, I've been on that program before, and we do embrace that. We're not as active as we used to be, but yes, so true. Yeah. And I live in Wino. Wino is part of where.
Right.
Black Beach is in Wino.
It's in Wino.
Mhm.
The one thing, another thing that we used to do annually, we're gonna bring back hopefully, but the, NAACP has a Freedom Fund banquet every year. And that's a grand time where people generally, get together, dress up a little bit if you want. And we try to honor people in our county, because just like Yvonne said, so many people have done things, but they just been overlooked, you know? And so we do it with an emphasis on what people have done in their community, especially that church community, because Charles City is made up of 11 black churches. You would not think that many black churches would be in one little small rural area, but the churches have had a great impact on the history of the county. And from those churches, people have gone out and done some great things.
That is fantastic. We have about 3 minutes left, and thankfully, we were able to go over a bit. I guess probably one more.
One statement, I'm retired military. You convinced me to come to Virginia, but I ain't going back to Alabama.
Well.
I have a virtual question. Can Camilla tell us about George Washington Watkins?
Oh, Rum Watkins. Doctor.
Yeah, he been
Rum Watkins was born in South Carolina. He came to New Kent. He was the first principal at the Second Liberty Color School in 1922. Then he was the first principal at the New Kent Training School in 1930. Then he was the first principal at George W. Watkins School in 1950. And he was pastor at 2 churches in Charles City at the same time. Remember back in the day, we only went to church one Sunday. So one Sunday he went to one church, and the other Sunday he went to Second Liberty Baptist Church in New Kent County. And Second Liberty is the oldest black church in New Kent County, established in 1866. And we got paperwork To say that it was established in 1866, it came from Emmaus, a white church, where when you go to church, we sit in the balcony and everybody else sat at the bottom. So they gave, Second Liberty to okay to start, they gave Second Liberty okay to start Second Liberty. And the first pastor at Second Liberty was.
You said the second. She said the first. Oh, the first.
At the church. No, I'm sorry, did I say Rum Watkins? No, he wasn't there. But, Rum Watkins was the principal. He lived next door. When kids ain't had a ride home, they could come spend the night at his house. He'd cook for them and always get up the next morning and, come to school. If anybody looked for any of his pictures, when he passed away, his family gave all his pictures, the schools, his family. They're at the Library of Virginia if you want copies.
And I had the,
Somewhere at Old Deal.
had the privilege of teaching in that school, and his house was right there, although it had been renamed. And today, if you walk in, that school's been renamed again, but the picture's there. So we're just so delighted that he was here and paved the way for us. Education, key to everything. Yeah.
Well, we, what, you
One,
say that and I
one,
will-
one quick thing. When, Watkins was integrated in 1970, all this big, you know how you have the big school pictures of all this people? They was gonna throw them in the trash can. But just so happened, one of the ladies there, she's a member of the NAACP and also the George W. Watkins alumni. She got all the pictures, so we have all of the original, when I say big, they the big ones.
Oh, wow.
Big pictures from 1950. The school started in 1950, first graduating class in 1951 to 1969. We got every last one of those.
Oh, my God. Let's give this really. Thank you all. Thank you, Sarah, for that extended time. Thank you all.
We do have some cards if you want to get in touch with us, and we do have some pictures of those